In 2003, my favorite video game of all time was released. BATEN KAITOS, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean. I feel I need to say that every time I talk about BATEN KAITOS, but especially in this video, I kinda need to say it. With Origins being a close second. 20 years later, against all hope and dreams, the BATEN KAITOS 1 and 2 HD Remaster collection was released. I mean, I'm adding the collection part because it's both the games, physical, in Europe on the card. And I want to give you my first impressions on this. I want to state it's my favorite video game of all time because I played it several times over, both BATEN KAITOS 1 and 2. I'm so excited to see an HD remaster 20 years later. But there's quite some negatives that I want to address. So this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about BATEN KAITOS itself, but mostly I want to give you my impressions of 20 hours of the first game in the collection. I'm starting at the top, you know, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean. I'm 20 hours in, so I can't comment on Origins yet. But oh boy, I definitely have a lot to say, good and bad. And I just want to like have a little conversation and talk about my first impressions of BATEN KAITOS HD. BATEN KAITOS was created by Monolith Soft and Tricocendo. I think the first one was published by Bandai Namco. I think the second one was only released in America, published by Nintendo themselves. And they are the greatest JRPGs ever made. Visual masterpieces. So quick summary of the game. You play as yourself, a guardian spirit. Yes, this game actually breaks the fourth wall quite a bit because you are a main character. And this plays along in the game itself.
大丈夫かみんな。
ええ。僕も問題ありません。
ああ、俺も平気だぜ。ああ、分かってるって。お前がヤバい時は、俺はもうアウトだよ。
And also most definitely in the gameplay, whereas the trust you have with your main character by answering his questions, partaking in the discussions, they actually decide specific super special attacks that appear in the game. I think the more Callus trusts you, the more the spirit attacks appear. There's one spirit attack for each element.
有り金置いてとっとと失せな。有り金置いてとっとと失せな。せいせい。我は闇、我が力に光退かん。デモンズ・ザ・ダーク。
BATEN KAITOS is a card-based game. This throws a lot of people off, but it's not like you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! It's very simple. You have your deck, you create a deck for each character in the first game. You have one general deck in the second game, which is one of the reasons I like the second game a little bit less. And this deck, you divide it between attack, defense, healing, and miscellaneous because you can create new combos and new items. For example, you can have a blank notebook and a pencil, and you combine them and it can create a doodle book, and that can have even more special things to it. There's so much to the game and the battle system, but the overall battle system is you pick a card, an attack, an element, and a number. In general, in the beginning of the game, each card is going to have one number in the corner. And the further you progress, that evolves to having 4 numbers on a card. And you get better combos and you do more damage if you either have pairs of numbers like 2 2s and 3 4s, or if you have a straight 1 2 3 4, or like 9 8 7 6, you know, in those orders with the number of cards you have available to you. On top of that, there's 6 elements in the game. You have fire opposite of water, you have wind opposite of time, and you have light opposite of dark. If an enemy, for example, attacks with fire, you have to make sure that the defense mechanism you use is gonna be water. If an enemy is a fire type and you attack with fire, it does less damage. All of this has to be taken into account. So while you're battling, you're trying to select whether you attack or your defense. You're trying to add the numbers and make sure the elements correspond. So you're constantly working with this, and I find it works so well. BATEN KAITOS Origins added the system where you can just skip cards, but in the original you can't do that. Strategy is a lot more important. You might, for example, have a combo, but you don't have defense cards for your next turn, so you might want to add in an extra card to discard in your turn, so defense cards pop up. The story itself is that Callus is found in the beginning of the game by Shella. They bond and Shella is fighting the Empire, you don't know yet, and that's the start of the story. And you meet all these other characters, each with their own stories and goals, and you explore the world fighting the Empire. I don't want to say more than that, because BATEN KAITOS, both Eternal Wings in the Lost Ocean and Origins, have some of the greatest plot twists and stories in gaming, and it's something you have to experience.
私はどうすればいいのだろう。同胞に銃を向けた以上、もう国へは帰れない。本人の知らぬうちに術をかけて、人を作戦のための道具として扱うような国に、今さら何を求めるんだ。
ねえ、リュウド。よかったら、あなたも一緒に行かない？私たちと。
おい、シェラ、本気か？
So you have an incredible story, incredible battle system, and BATEN KAITOS is still to this day the best looking GameCube game there is. And even now, this remaster absolutely holds up. So let's talk about the good and let's talk about the bad of the remaster of these two absolute works of art. This video is not going to be a review. I don't want to review the whole game. I don't like doing reviews too much, and specifically I don't like deconstructing my favorite games. In this video I just really specifically want to talk about the good and the bad about the remaster itself compared to the original games, because there's definitely some stuff. I want to talk about the good stuff first, to start it on a positive note, and then I'm gonna go into the negatives, and there are quite a lot. There's definitely some issues with this remaster. Either way, let's talk about the good. The main obvious big thing are the graphics. Seeing my favorite game of all time just absolutely remastered in widescreen, full screen, HD. Some characters have are completely new models. I think specifically the bosses look like new models. Everything has been retextured, reworked, the lighting and some effects have been redone. It had to be adjusted for widescreen, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. It looks so good, it looks better than ever. I also like that in battle, often, it might be because of the widescreen format, but in battle often you see close-ups of the characters and the enemies in a way you never really saw it before. I don't remember in the past the games doing this. I feel characters and enemies would often disappear or fade off the screen. I actually like it that now you can see them up close in such detail. Because one of the issues I used to have with the original game, specifically the main characters, they look very blurry and vague. So this is absolutely amazing, being able to see this on screen up close like that. The backgrounds themselves are completely remade. When you look at some of the walls, the greenery, everything, the clouds in battle and everything, it's completely redone. It looks amazing. You can barely even compare it to the original anymore. while clearly still being a remaster. But they just added a lot of stuff like the clouds. It's a whole new cloud system in a lot of these battle backgrounds, and I just absolutely love that. Same thing for outside of the battles. The map, the towns, the levels you're walking through, everything looks absolutely beautiful. The details of it, the sharpness, the reworked textures, it is amazing, and everything just looks really good. Inside the battle, outside the battle, just graphically, it's amazing. No complaints whatsoever. The same for the menus. I'm not too big of a fan that they changed the boxes of the text. I felt something was strange until I realized it when I was comparing it to the old games, that the lettering has been completely changed. But I can live with that. It's sharp, it's nice, it's good. But on top of that, in the menus, the magnets themselves, the cards you collect and use, being able to see those in HD, because sometimes you couldn't even tell what was what, let's be honest. And seeing all these attacks and elements, seeing all the gear that you can collect, the random miscellaneous magnets, seeing the leveling up, all this kind of stuff, being able to see all of this in full HD, it's perfect, it's beautiful. Like visually, from the battles to the towns to the magnets, everything is just perfect. And that really was the main thing for this HD remaster. But there's more positive than just that. There's also improved frame rate, which you can definitely tell in some of the battles. You have an extra menu that they added where you can change the battle speed, encounter rate, a simplified menu when it comes to the end result screen, when it calculates the magnets of like the defense and the attack and everything. So there's definitely several additions to that too. On top of that, the first game now has a New Game Plus, because I think originally only Origins had a New Game Plus. So they added that where your magnets carry over that you collected, I think levels, classes, all that stuff. So those are a lot of additions that weren't even in the original that they added. So that's a great plus as well. The fact that they didn't just improve of what was there, but they added things that some people, and not me, but some people in the past had issues with. You can increase the speed of the battles. You can remove encounters completely, one-hit kills, all that stuff. And more features is always a plus. Another thing I like, it's a very current day thing, but they already released a patch for the game to patch some glitches that were in it. And I like that idea, the fact that they can keep working on it to improve it still over time when people discover certain glitches, which we're gonna come back to still. And the fact that they can just patch that in, I kinda like that. Also, in Europe at least, the physical copy has both games on there with no download required. And sadly, that's a huge feat in this day and age. There's also an autosave feature, which I personally kinda like, because in the past in BATEN KAITOS, save points are pretty far apart from each other, and you would lose a lot of progress sometimes if you would die pretty far away or close to another save point. The final positive thing that I want to say, no matter the negatives I'm about to address, I absolutely love the Japanese voice acting.
私一人の力ではどうしようもない。ねえお願いカラス。
断る。帝国が何をやらかそうが、世界がどうなろうが、そんなこと俺の知ったことじゃない。第一協力しろったって、帝国相手にどうしようって言うんだ。シェラ、お前一人で。
それは。
冗談じゃない。一緒に死んでくれる仲間を探してるっていうのなら他を当たってくれ。俺は帝国に喧嘩を売って無駄死にする気はない。なあ、お前もそう思うだろ。本気かよ。いくらお前がそう言ったって今度ばかりはごめんだぜ。
I originally imported the game, the first game, from Japan so I could experience it with the Japanese voices. And they're great. They're absolutely incredible. I love these voices. I love the way they're acted. I love the way the characters sound. So no matter what my complaints are going to be in the next section, I love the Japanese voices and I love that I'm able to experience this. There's nothing to say about that. I mean, there's some stuff to say about that. All these things considered, to me, the good far outweighs the bad and absolutely justifies this remaster. The graphics alone, seeing my favorite game of all time 20 years later completely remastered in HD, I couldn't have asked for more. So no matter what, the good completely outweighs the bad for me. But the bad list is a little bit longer. And there's some issues that only affect me as a fan personally, but there's some issues that I feel shouldn't even be in this game and that I've never experienced before. And I finished the original game several times, but I feel some of these are a product of the remaster. So let's address it. Something very minor that nobody's ever going to care about, that doesn't matter, is they removed the ages of the characters from their profiles. Something extremely dumb that I always liked is that not only did you see the ages of the characters on the screen, I think Callus was 18, I think Shella is 17, and so every character had their age on there. And at some point in the original game, I still haven't been able to pinpoint the exact moment, and I never looked it up, but at some point, Callus goes from 18 to 19 years old. He has a birthday somewhere in the game. And I thought it was hilarious that this was just in the game. But it's not in this game. For some reason, they didn't add the ages of the characters. And I don't know why that is, even though it might be in relation to some of the other stuff we're going to address in a little bit. I did say I absolutely love the Japanese voices. However, qualitatively, Shella's voice feels out of place. Like she recorded it in a different studio. It feels slightly muffled sometimes. I don't know what that is. But whatever, I can live with that. I mean, technically I can, because I feel they removed the English voices because of the complaints of people in the past. And that's a big negative here on this list. There's no English voices. I feel even if people didn't like the English voices, why remove them? I always loved the English voices. I hate that this game looks so good now and I can't experience it the way I prefer it, the way it should be. To me, the English voices were part of the game. They made up half the atmosphere. It's very operatic, theatrical, the way it was done. But people complained that it sounded in bad quality, but I never had that issue, even though now with the Japanese voices, when I listen to Shella's voice, I feel something is wrong. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if other people who complained about the English voices, who said the Japanese voices were okay, if they ever played both versions, because I have. But either way, they should not have been removed. And I think, I know the reasons they gave is today we live in a different era, certain phrases had to be changed. I don't know. I think they removed it to avoid bad publicity. Some people think it's copyright issues. I don't think that matters. If a studio goes under, the rights automatically go back to Bandai Namco either way. But yeah, there's no English voices, and that's my biggest negative. I absolutely hope they might still patch them in. When we think about the positives about the game, they could patch them in at some point. But it's definitely, I don't buy that it's a localization issue. Continuing about the voice acting. Okay, so you remove the English voice acting. I'll get over it somehow. But then the Japanese voices aren't even always subtitled.
覚悟なさい。
覚悟はいいですね。必殺オーバーチュア。そこだ。
先を急ぎましょう。
You have voice attacks in the game, in battle. The voices have numbers as well. You can add them to your combo, and they have extra percentage bonuses if you use a voice attack. And these voice clips are subtitled on screen. But when you sometimes take a picture of an enemy in the game, there's a voice clip. When you go into a battle, when you come out of a battle, there's voice clips there, and they're never subtitled, and this drives me insane. If you're removing the English voices, at least subtitle everything that is in the game. The battle attacks aren't even subtitled. It's nuts. I don't understand. What is the excuse there? That's why I feel like it makes no sense. Now, I'm lucky. I'm a huge anime fan. I've watched anime my entire life. I can understand some of these phrases. Honestly, 2 out of 3 phrases, I understand them. For example, when a character is taking a picture, they say "ima," which I know means right now. Now, I know this, but other people might not. When you're having a good battle after you won, one of the characters can go like "ii shoba dattaze." I know that means like, oh, it was a good battle. And there's so many more. Choto abenai kane. That was a bit dangerous, wasn't it? After barely winning a fight. Rakshoda. That was easy after easily winning a fight. I know these things because I was studying Japanese and I watched a lot of anime and I still have a lot of that in me. So I recognize some of these phrases because a lot of phrases are very standard phrases, both in video games and in anime. But they should be subtitled because even I don't understand all these phrases and most people won't understand any of these phrases. If you remove the English voices, why aren't all the Japanese phrases subtitled that are in the game? Something I don't like in battle either is the end screen. Now you can turn it off completely, but then it makes no sense. But the end screen of a battle, of an attack round, I should say. In the battle, there's multiple attack rounds, obviously. Again, you use an attack that's 50 with an elemental fire attack that's 30. You're using water defense plus normal defense and it calculates it. Then you have a percentage combo. So let's say you have a straight of numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 on your cards and you're able to connect them. So you get a percentage bonus of like 10%. And let's say there's a voice clip which gives you another bonus of 7%. So it calculates everything perfectly, so that you understand what happened, what defense affected what attacks, and what percentages of the bonuses have been added. But in the original game, it's one screen all attached. So it calculates it, it adds, it subtracts. But now, they split the offense, defense, and the results. And the fact that they separated them is really confusing because they made lines like this instead of lines like that. It's a minor detail, but when I started playing it and I noticed this, I found it pretty confusing and I don't understand why it's done like that. Now I just want to talk a little bit more about the graphics and that kind of stuff, but in a different way. I said these graphics are perfect, they're amazing, they look beautiful. But I have some issues with this. There are several screens. For example, the overworld map. Some in-level locations, the cloud passage, I've noticed that. Palolo as well, I've noticed that. And in shops, for example, it's not actually always full screen. They add fake borders in the side that kind of mirror the images. And I'm sorry, but I find this cheap. I feel they could have done something to that, to change the aspect ratio or something. I find it very strange that sometimes you have very obvious fake borders when you're in a house or in a level that just shouldn't be there. And that's not a programming issue, that's a graphical thing that just bothers me when you remaster a game completely in full screen, that at random intervals, not every screen is actually widescreen, full screen. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand. I mean, no, because like even in Palolo as well, for example, the borders are mirrored, but just fade it out to black. Why change that? It is such a weird thing to do. And like in the cloud passage even, it's clouds, just make it clouds. Why do you have these dark mirrored edges, sometimes there and other times not? Now, it's only here and there, but enough that it definitely bothers me, and it shouldn't be like that, I feel. Talking about the screens also, the menu screens themselves, They look beautiful, but they made them very convoluted. At one point, I got a new buckle. Each character has one specific equipment. Callus has buckles, Shella has anklets, Liud has earrings, and so on. And when I got a new buckle to equip for Callus, I went to the menu and I couldn't find it. And then I went to the new Magnus and I couldn't find it. I'm like, where is this stuff? I went to the deck, I couldn't find it. I went to the character screen, I couldn't find it. I'm like, where is this stuff? And then I found out you have to go to the character, then select Magnus, and then hit R to shovel between the extra cards you have, the blank Magnus that you fill for quests and stuff, to your collection, to the actual equipment item. This, I'm not joking, took me like 5 to 10 minutes to figure out. I was going insane. I couldn't figure out where it was to equip. So I feel some of the menus are a little bit convoluted and uselessly so, I feel. I should just be able to click on Callus's profile and then equip the item. It shouldn't be hidden in a sub-menu. Because when you first go to the characters and then to the Magnus, you have the camp items, like the healing for when you're out of battle, or to revive a character. It shouldn't be hidden behind two of those menus. It's very strange that they did that. Just because we're talking about the menus also. This is a minor one, but in the original game, when you boot it up, the load screen has a tree blowing in the wind. You have the soft music and the tree in the wind. And I always really enjoy that title screen. And for some reason in this game, it's just a flat background with the logo and everything. And I don't know. I just miss that tree. There's also some localization issues that I'm bothered by. One thing, the game is censored. It's Nintendo censored. I don't know if Nintendo themselves censored it, but it's what Nintendo used to do. And I don't know why they changed it again now. I don't know if they did it for the rating, but for example, when Liud comes into your team, he has wine. He is equipped with Sweet Deluxe wine. And they changed that now to Sweet Deluxe juice, is it? Is it drink? I think it's juice. And so there's sake in the game. You know, it's rice wine, basically. And what did they change it to? Rice brew, I think? Just really weird stuff. There's no reason to change that. It's so weird. And on top of that, the worst part is that you had localizers insert their own opinions in the game. And I find this very strange. They changed one specific location. I think it went like viral a little while ago. It came up in some articles. Is at one point you find, for example, a book. And in the book it talks something about marriage. But then the localizers, they added like, yikes. Like, don't give me your opinion in this game. What are you doing? It's just very weird. Like, it's these strange changes that I feel like have no need to even be there, to be added. The biggest issue for me in this game are the glitches. Now, I never really care about glitches. If a glitch is in the game, that's okay. It's a different story if a game never really had any glitches and now there's a bunch of them. And I've only played 20 hours. This is like at least a 60-hour game. And I've experienced so many glitches already that are clear glitches. For example, Callus's Shadow Wings attack. At one point, instead of going to the enemy, it just went the other way. Same with Liu's Overture. Half the time, if not more, it's not even animated. The effects of the laser beam itself, they're not even present all the time. These are strange glitches that shouldn't be in the game. Sometimes in battle, when the Magnuses of your combo are displayed and it removes them, sometimes the numbers in the corners remain on the screen still until the screen switches. Or when you see a combo, the hit counter on the screen. It sometimes stays on the screen for way too long until the screen switches. These are things that shouldn't be there. These are actual glitches that shouldn't be in the game. And it just bothers me when it happens. Like basically every few battles you notice one of these things. Same with at one point, Shella for me was poisoned. So I heal her so she's no longer poisoned. So she is no longer poisoned. The character doesn't have the poison bubbles anymore. She doesn't take damage anymore. But on her character card, it still says she is poisoned. These are things that just shouldn't be. I've never experienced a single glitch in my thousands of hours in playing both original games. So obviously these might be products for the remaster with everything they had to do, but it is quite a lot, and I don't like talking about stuff like this. I usually have no real problem with glitches, but again, if it's a game that never had glitches before, to see them so often, it starts bothering me, because it's my favorite game of all time. I want it to be perfect. So when your main thing is a visual upgrade, seeing the visuals like glitched over left and right when it comes to the card combo, the attacks not happening, the things counting up, it's a lot. I've also had one thing. Now, I don't necessarily think it's a glitch as it's a programming error, but one thing this game does that I like is when you load your game, you get a little text telling you where you were in your quest. However, the moment when I arrived at Shelnath in Diadem, I arrived there for the very first time. I saved, I went to bed because I had to work. Next day, I booted it up again. And for some reason, the quest wasn't like, oh, the gang arrived in Diadem, we gotta meet King Lalakan. It said like, oh, the end of the quest showed you a beam that led to this location. So now the gang is on the way to this other island to meet this other person. Like, I wasn't even remotely there yet. This card was just completely out of place. I feel, in general, the game just hasn't been play tested enough. I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't know what to do. I don't know. It's not a review. And I don't want this video to deter people from buying this game. It's still art. It is worth it. This remaster is more than worth it. It is absolutely beautiful. The visuals alone are amazing. The backgrounds by Yoshiyuki Hone, the characters, the story, the music by Motoi Sakuraba. It's absolute art. No matter what, all the positives far outweigh the negatives. I just wish the negative list wasn't so extensive, especially because it doesn't need to be. A lot of these issues, when we're talking about issues that aren't me, nobody liked the English voices but me, so whatever, it's a me issue. The H thing is dumb, it's a me issue, you know. Maybe not every screen needs to be widescreen, it's a me issue. A lot of these things are just problems that I have myself. So I do hope that the few concrete things that are wrong with this game, like some of these glitches, won't deter you from getting this game. The good is far outweighs the bad. Visually, it's amazing. The voice acting, the characters, the story, the music. It is still absolutely the greatest game ever made, now in a way more beautiful jacket. And I just, please pick it up and play it for yourself. If you love JRPGs, even more so with intricate battle systems, please pick it up. If you just want an amazing story, you have the new battle options. You can just skim through the game to just experience the story. I know some people are like that, and who am I to judge? Especially because the story should be experienced by so many people. This music should be heard. These visuals should be appreciated. And a negative list like this shouldn't undermine that in any way. Please still pick this up. I just wanted to get, because a lot of people that still follow me from my old channel know it's my favorite game of all time. A lot of people have been wondering about my opinions, and these are, after 20 hours of gameplay, my first impressions. And I don't know, I feel, you know, honesty matters. I feel I should point out that even I had issues with this remaster. Now, ask me to choose between both games. It sucks because I would still pick the original, mainly because of the English voices. Because apart from that, if the English voices were in here, there would be no reason to go back to the original game. None of these negatives would actually matter, I feel, to me personally. And this would absolutely be the only way to play this game. But as of now, there's a Japanese way of playing the game and an English way of playing the game. And I still feel the English voices matter. Anyway, thank you for watching this extremely long, in-depth video of my first impressions after 20 hours of gameplay of the BATEN KAITOS 1 and 2 HD Remaster for Nintendo Switch. Even if you can't pick it up physically, it's digital as well. Please pick it up. If you love RPGs, this is the game for you. Absolutely the game for you. Please subscribe to my channel, Legend of Retro. All my links are going to be in the video description below. They're not clickable yet. Thank you, YouTube. But you can find me on Twitch. You can find me on it's The Legend of Retro on YouTube. It's Retro's Legend on Twitter. Stuff is in the I'm on TikTok as well. I think on TikTok it's also The Legend of Retro, or is it also Retro's Legend? I don't know. Things are going to be in the description. You can copy paste it, whatever. Definitely please subscribe. A brand new channel. I love talking about video games. There's going to be a live stream up as well where I talk about some of the stuff that's going on between the Wii and the Switch that might be up already by the time this video is up. So you can check it out. I'll link it at the end of this video. That was a lot of fun to do, he says preemptively. And there's going to be way more coming. There's going to be reactions to trailers. There's going to be gameplay. I'm very excited. I just want to talk more about my favorite games of all time. So how could I not make this video talking about my favorite game of all time?